Alright, hey guys, it's Atlas here with another deck profile. I think I'm up to 6 at this point. Anyway, so this is the 7 Cs I took with me to Springfest. I only got to round 4, but it still served me pretty well. So starting off, we have Pietro the Ghostie. He's your starter. You counterblast 1, act still, counterblast 1, shove and stole, mill 2, draw 1. So a lot of people, like in the Nightmist build, you ran Grenache because it allowed you unflips. But with 7 Cs, you don't have time to selectively fill your drop zone, so you kind of have to rely on random mill, which is what he's good for. And then he also works with Dancing Cutlass, which you'll see later on. Grade 3s, you have Lord of the 7 Seas, Nightmist. He's a break ride. I know, crazy, right? Limit break 4, when you break ride on top of him, he gets 10k, and then you call 2 things from drop, and they both get plus 5k, and then at the end of the turn, you retire them. So, the crazy thing with this is that you can get a break ride, get free units, and then because they're hollow units, they're going to die anyway. You get more of a bonus from that, so he's super important. I think he's like what most of the deck cost was him in the stride. So he's super important, Nightmist. Then you have 3 7 Cs Sage Plegeton. He's got a drop zone still, which is if you have a grade 2 or greater Vanguard with 7 Cs in its name, like, I don't know, Nightmist, you can counterblast 2 and ride him from drop zone, which means you can superior break ride from the drop. And there's other stills, when you put him on Vanguard Circle, you can temporarily call someone from drop zone. So he's a good any time of the game ride, because you can either get 3 units with Nightmist, or you can, if he's like your first grade 3 ride, you can just get something from drop. The reason he's a 3 of and not a 4 of is because the deck is very kind of early game focused, so having more grade 2s to work with is definitely, you know, worth the trouble. And also, if you mill him, you can just ride him anyway, so not really needed to run 4. Grade 2s, this one's a personal attack. 3-star Chef Pietro. He's an old card from BTO6. On hit, unflipped damage. This is at any time in the game. So typically, my favorite thing to do is go ride him turn 2, do Peter's thing, mill 2, and then he's attacking and he's probably getting you an unflip. He's also a good late game if you call him out with Nightmist and he's plus 5k and he's on hit unflip. It's just a good card. The only reason he's a 1 of is other cards take more importance over him. It's just this is like a trademark, I guess, of mine, because I ran Granblue when I first started the game and he was super important. So 3 Negrorook. I'm not even going to try and say the whole name. The skill is Hollow. So Hollow is when it's placed on rear guard circle, you can declare the card to be in Hollow, so it's like a state, and then at the end of the turn you retire it. So GB1, when it attacks, period, it gains plus 2k, and then if it's hollowed, it gets plus 5k. So that means it's a 16k attacker by itself. Too crazy not to run it at least 3. A lot of builds I see at 4, but I couldn't secure 4 because I didn't buy any trial decks, so it's 3. That's my reasoning. 3 Rune Shade. Rune Shade is another old card, although she got a reprint for GBTO6, thank God. Her skill is when she attacks, you can mill 2 and have her gain 2k during the battle. So it's really good if, like, you're playing the grade 2 game, you can consistently hit the 11k Vanguard, or if you happen to get a stand trigger and restand her, she's hitting for 16 by herself. So she's a very good card, and also she has more importance here in the 7 Cs deck because she allows you to mill early. So 2 Skeleton Cannoneer. I think this is my favorite new card. His skill is Hollow. When he's called from drop zone, you counterblast 1 and retire an opponent's rear guard. Then if Cannoneer's hollowed, you draw a card. So it's a +1 no matter what way you slice it. If you decide not to hollow him, you just get a free retire. Like if you're playing against Diablo, for instance, you want to keep your units around to kill him off. The cool thing with Cannoneer is that because he's going to die, you can just keep bringing him back and keep killing rear guards, like if you're playing against Angel Feather. Sorry, my friend's off to the side, he plays Angel Feather. 2 Slash Shades, 7 Cs Slash Shades. So his skill is drop zone. When your Vanguard with 7 Cs attacks, you can counterblast 1, retire one of your grade 1 or more rear guards, and then call him into rear guard circle and he gets plus 2k. So he's a permanent call, which is kind of neat. Like if you're playing against Diablo, you can like get rid of a hollowed unit, put him back, and then you have something to kill next turn. But the important part is that he extends your attacks, so you can attack with a chump column and then retire the front row, and you get a standing 11k attacker. So he's very good. If you don't want to run Pietro, you can run him at 3. He works fine. Otherwise, it's just Pietro's my thing. So That's the grade 2s. Under grade 1s, 4 GPGs. GPGs are kind of interesting in this deck because we counterblast so much and we don't rely on Grenache as much, which means that we kind of need these to function. If you're running the Nightmist deck, you can definitely get away without GPGs, but like these are super important in here, so, you know. For Stride Fodder, if I'm running 7 grade 3s and I want to Stride, this is super important. Also, in the off chance that you, if you stride into Obadiah the Ghostie, he's your call target, assuming Peter is in the drop zone. So, let's see. 3 Nightcrow. To those of you who played Granblue in the old days, there was a card called Samurai Spirit, which is you counterblast 1, retire 1 of your units, and call a Samurai Spirit to a rearguard circle. Well, this thing is him on crack, which is if you have a 7C's Vanguard, just retire and call him anyway. So let's say you have a column of, you know, Pietro and you call Dancing Cutlass for the draw. You can use him to make it a proper column. So that's pretty nice. And also he's permanent like Slash Shade, so if you're playing against Diablo, you can, you know, work against that. Speaking of Cutlass, 3 Cutlass. The skill is on call, Soul Blast 2, draw 1. In the Mayrose deck, you run Sea Stroll and Banshee, which is when called from drop, Soul Blast 1, draw 1. This is the heavier cost and less power, but for the added benefit of being able to use it right at the beginning of the game, which is super important. It works so well with Peter, because you go, okay, ride your grade 2, and counterblast, shove in Soul, mill 2, draw 1, then call Cutlass, Soul Blast those 2 cards out, draw 1. It's also good if you happen to be grade stuck. Like if you ride your grade 1 and you have like, you know, Rough Seas Banshee, you go call Rough Seas, put them in Soul, get more draws, call Cutlass, get another draw, so you're like working your way toward not having a G assist. So he's really good. Now for the grade 0s, 1 Undying Departed Grenache. So I mentioned him a lot. He's still a great card. If he hollow, when he's put in drop zone by hollow, countercharge 2. Wow. It's so good. The only problem is that, like, because it doesn't allow you to be as aggressive from the start of the game, unless you, like, you know, call him to the side and, like, start attacking with him. But I just thought Peter was better to get the engine going and set up your drop. That doesn't mean, like, you know, sometimes you'll mill them, sometimes you won't. Oftentimes they should be dead before you have to worry about unflipping damage. So he's just in there for, oh, look, free 10k shield, that sort of thing. You can choose not to run him if you want, in which case, like, just add another grade 2 of your choosing, but I like him, so. For heals, I couldn't get Dr. Ruse's, so, you know. 4 Rough Seas Banshee, which is crit trigger, you shove her in Soul, draw a card, which is really good for Granblue because you can set up your Cutlasses and, you know, cycle through your deck some more. You don't use the effect too often, but sometimes the best one, though, is calling her from drop for free and then getting a draw off it. So, very nice. 2, Jimmy the Ghostie. He's my favorite crit, so I don't care what you say. Jimmy the Ghostie. 4, Mick the Ghostie and family, so Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. He's a stand trigger, hollow skill. When called from drop, if you hollow him and you GB1, you can give something, another unit plus 10k, and then his other skill is when he's put in drop, you can shuffle him back in. So what's fun is you can call him, give something plus 10k, and then Nightcrow, retire him for Nightcrow, and then this goes back in deck. So it's, no matter what Granblue build you're playing, you will see this at 4 because it's too good not to run. So the difference, however, you'll notice that I only run 6 crit. Well, that's because I also run Hades Steersman, which is if you ride grade 3, you can call him in, call him behind it, behind the Vanguard, so you can retire it for Nightcrow or whoever. And then also 1 Gram the Ghostie, who's your Margal Club. So shove and Soul plus 3. I used to play a build called Stand Blue back in the day, and I realized that it works even better today. So my build is different from most people's in that it's Stand Blue rather than 8 crit 4 draw. I think it may just be because I'm nostalgic for the start of the game, but like it works really well. You can honestly put 2 grams to Hades Steersman, doesn't matter. But the important part is like having stands and like thinking in that way of like extending your attacks on this like big turn is just so good. All right, and then now for the strides. What is a 7 Seas deck without Loved by the 7 Seas Nightmist? Counterblast 1. You call 2 things from drop, and they die at the end of the turn. You do not have to unflip a copy of them. You do not have to be GB2. You can just do it. And that's so good because that means you can just get these crazy fields from nowhere. Call 2 Negrorooks, that's 16k on the sides for free pretty much. And they're gonna die anyway, so it's not like that's much of a drawback. He's your stride 95% of the time. And he's also the other reason why this deck is so expensive. Luckily, I managed to put the whole thing together for about 150, but that's because I'm a lucky bastard. So, next up you have Obadiah the Ghostie. This one, his skill is when you stride him, you search your deck for 3 things and you put them in drop. And then if two of the 3 or more cards have the hollow skill, you can call a normal Ghostie unit to like the circle behind him. So you either want to do Tommy the Ghostie or Peter the Ghostie. You can't do Mick, as broken as that would be. But the only time you want to stride this is if something went horribly wrong and you milled all triggers. Because hopefully you're not that unlucky. I see people run Blue Heart here too, but I hate Blue Heart, so over that. 1 Bandit Rum. So his skill is on hit, you call someone from drop, give it plus 2k. This is one of those strides for the off chance that you know you're playing against someone and you happen to have a full field from Break Ride or whatever. So there's no reason to use, you know, Nightmist stride, so you might as well get some on hit pressure while you're here. So, pretty simple. And lastly, 2 Mayrose. This is supposed to be the quote-unquote finisher, but I haven't actually used it all that often. Skill is Counterblast 2, GB2 when it attacks, right, GB2? Yeah, GB2. So when it attacks, Counterblast 2, flip over a copy. You call 2 things from drop in separate rows, which means you have to do like a column or this. You can't do this, or up here. So it's good for like I used it exactly once during Springfest where I was playing against a bluish flame guy. I go attack, and then I do it, and then I get a new column over an old column just so I got like another, you know, refresh column of attacks. Luckily, unlike the Nightrose build, you don't have to run 4 of these, so you can get away with 2. When it comes to G Guardians, I would recommend, I know that's coming up in a week, so I might as well talk about it. I think for Granblue, what you want to do is you want to run, for G Guardians, 2 Screw, which is the Cray Elemental discard, use a 25k shield, because that means you set up your drop more. 1 of the Dark Elemental guy that screws over D-Police, and 1 of the actual Granblue G-Guard where you mill 2. I don't know what your crown gets, okay, put 2 units back in deck, it gets plus 5k shield. We're like the kings of milling, we couldn't have done that? Oh well, anyway. So, that's Atlas's Stand Blue. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.